Dawn came slow that morning, bleeding pale gold through the frost-stiff grass along the road into town. The air held that brittle stillness of late winter, when even the crows seem reluctant to move, and every bootstep sounds like it might be the only one for miles. The storefronts, tired from years of wind and sun, stood in their crooked row, wood gone gray as old bones. Smoke from last night's fires clung low, mingling with the faint metallic tang of snowmelt running along the gutter lines. Somewhere close, faint but insistent, a piano was being played. Not well, not fluently, but with the stubbornness of someone unwilling to give up on a thing they loved. I had heard mornings like that before, in 100 towns that have since disappeared, but something in the sound told me this one mattered. You learn to feel such things if you live long enough, when a moment is heavier than it should be, when the air itself seems to watch. She came along the road with her shoulders hunched and her eyes fixed not on where she was going, but on some thought deep inside her. The hem of her dress was damp, her boots scuffed raw at the toes. In her arms, wrapped in faded cloth, she carried a bundle like a mother might carry an infant, only the shape was wrong. Longer, thinner. She moved the way the wind moves across old prairie grass, bending but not breaking. The music led her to the saloon, where the doors stood half open. The light inside was dust-thick, the kind that turns gold when it touches wood, and at the far end, a tall man sat at the upright piano. His shoulders were broad, his back straight, but the melody he was forcing from those keys came in fits, the left hand stumbling to catch the right. Mozart, perhaps, though stripped bare and limping. She stood at the threshold, unnoticed for a moment, until the words left her lips without her consent. "If you can play Mozart, I'll marry you right now." The sound stopped like a bird shot from the sky. He looked over his shoulder, not with offense, not with humor, just a slow, measuring glance, as though she'd spoken a language he hadn't heard in years. He said nothing. A shopkeeper across the street, hearing her voice, leaned to a neighbor and whispered something sharp enough to draw a few more eyes. She stepped back, heat rushing to her cheeks, but the man at the piano finally spoke. "I can't play it," he said quietly. "Not yet." Something in his tone, matter of fact, not ashamed, held her there. She almost answered, but a small figure wandered in from the side door, a boy of perhaps 7, hair in need of cutting, eyes in need of nothing at all. He stared at her like he'd seen a bird land in the house. She looked away first. The man nodded toward the bench. "If you know it, show me." Her feet moved before her pride could object. The keys were warm under her fingers, as though they'd been waiting. She began slowly, the melody unspooling, filling the dim room with a tenderness the walls hadn't heard in years. The boy edged closer, knees drawn up, listening without blinking. But she stopped mid-phrase, the weight of memory pressing on her chest. She'd sworn she'd never play again. When she stood, there was a mug of coffee waiting on the edge of the piano, steam curling in the cold air. He'd poured it without asking. She took it without thanking. Word drifted quick in a town like that. By afternoon, she knew the boarding house was full, though she'd seen empty rooms upstairs. The innkeeper told her she might be more comfortable elsewhere. Elsewhere meant nowhere. She lingered on the boardwalk, pretending to study the horizon, until a shadow stretched beside her. The man from the saloon spoke like someone offering a fence post to lean on, not a rescue. "There's a room at my place. Just for the night. You can pay by playing for us." She started to refuse, but the boy was there again, tugging at her sleeve. "Please come. The house is too quiet." So she said yes, though she held the word like it might bite. The ride was long, winter's grip still on the land. Frost glittered on the dead grass, and the breath of the horses rose in pale clouds. The ranch house came into view as the sun leaned west, a weathered shape against a sky already fading to blue steel. Inside, the air was warm, smelling of wood smoke and something earthy from the stew simmering on the stove. Shelves lined one wall, heavy with books that had been read more than once. In the corner stood another piano, scarred but proud. They ate in a silence that wasn't unfriendly. The boy placed her spoon on the table with deliberate care. The man filled her cup before his own. That night, as she lay in the narrow bed they'd given her, she heard the faint plinking of piano keys from the other room, a man working at Mozart in the dark. The next day, She unwrapped her bundle. The violin's varnish had dulled, a crack running down its side like a scar. He came in quietly, watching her run the cloth along the wood. "What happened to it?" he asked. She didn't look up. "My husband threw it. Didn't like the noise." The bow trembled in her hand, but she played anyway, slow, aching notes that filled the room with something close to prayer. The boy curled on the rug, eyes heavy. The man leaned in the doorway, hat in hand, and said nothing. Sunday brought them into town. Outside the church, eyes followed her the way eyes do when a story is told too many times to be trusted. A man stepped forward, his smile sharp. "Didn't take long, did it? Looking for another man to feed you." His tone was oil over broken glass. She didn't answer. The rancher said nothing either, but he moved to her side, his shoulder brushing hers, a silent wall between her and the cold. That night she packed her things. "I'll leave in the morning," she told him. "Don't want my name dragging yours." He didn't argue, just met her gaze and said, "If you go, I won't stop you." She left before dawn, the frost still unbroken. The violin lay on the table. The house after that was quieter than it had any right to be. The boy practiced scales alone, stumbling through the same 4 measures. The man worked the fields, eyes drawn too often to the empty chair at supper. One evening, a folded paper appeared on the piano bench, a child's drawing of her at the keys, him beside her, the boy at their feet. No words, just a sky drawn yellow over all 3 of them. She found it 2 days later, tucked into the bottom of her bag. She sat down on a log by the roadside, snow crusting her boots, and wept without sound. By dusk, she was back at the ranch, slipping inside without knocking. The violin was under her arm. He was at the piano, playing, hesitant, halting, but the melody was there, struggling toward wholeness. She stood behind him until the last note faded, then laid her hand on his shoulder. "Not perfect," he said. "Perfect enough," she whispered. The boy came running, his hand warm in hers. "Mama," he said, as though it had always been so, "play with us." It wasn't a mansion, or a wedding, or a promise made loud. It was stew on a wooden table, the scrape of chairs, and the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. Maybe that's how homes are made, one small kindness at a time. And yet, as the last of the evening light pressed through the window, she looked toward the horizon, as though listening for something still unfinished, something that might yet call her away.